This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, Matthew Hunt. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, Conrad. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Doing well. I'm doing well. We're on the late shift today, so it's going to be a fun one.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, it's, you know, what's up with Berkey? What's up with those late shit?
I had to play, man. Get your headphones on, bro.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
They let you play today.
Guapo hit you with an early cut there, too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not used to the new intro.
No, neither is he.
I feel like
it's fine.
as soon as you see the Only Friends,
Right. That's
the end.
That should be the end. Yeah. We're working on it.
I don't know about should.
That
but
will
I'm
be
just
the
not used
end,
to it.
right? When the new
I
one-
think so, yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
It's a
with
temporary
that intro.
placeholder for the time being.
For sure.
You know, we're actually going to get the full word friends. We're working on it. We have to pay our editors a little more.
At least we got rid of all the people who aren't on the show anymore.
That's true.
It's 1,000 per letter.
That is true. R.I.P. Andre.
Mm-hmm. Bye, Andre.
Oh man, I'm so mad at Andre right now.
Whoa, tell us more.
Tea.
I'm-
Give us some tea.
All right, I'm gonna have to leave the camera on you, Matthew.
Okay.
So I get to work, or I get to the office, and Derek and I are told by Andre that we have to take a Mensa IQ test.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
What?
We don't have an HR department yet.
You
and
know,
I really didn't want to do this because I knew it was going to bum me out.
you know Landon's in Mensa.
I didn't know that.
Well, he'll tell you all about it.
I won't.
Anyways, so begrudgingly, I took the test.
Okay.
Derek took the test, and then Andre, you know, for camaraderie, took the test as well. And it turned out the way I expected it to, so I'm a little depressed. I'm officially the stupid person at Grey Torp Solutions.
What did it come back?
We're not doing that.
Come on, bro.
We're not doing that.
What was Andre's?
139.
Woo!
How many tortillas did you score?
And the funny thing was, it was all puzzles. So I was like, oh, I should do all right on this.
Yeah. All right. What was it, above or below 100?
Oh, come on.
Well, you said you didn't want to do this.
Derek got
75, Burke. It was 70.
Derek got 124. I got 117, and Andre got 139.
You're all above average.
yeah.
What are we worried about
still,
here?
You know, it hurts your ego a little bit.
Well, now you got to hear fucking Andre say, hey, the stupid person at Grey Torp.
I mean, you guys basically all dropped trowel and measured, and you came back like 6 inches. Like, are you really that upset?
Well, if you put it that way, then even more so now.
You made him more upset, not less upset.
I mean, Andre is rocking like an 8.5 chode here. So it does make you feel a little bad.
Did you have to do like a bunch of stuff with like moving blocks around?
It was
and, like,
honestly,
a
it was
bunch of
just
shape
puzzles
tests?
where it looks like you're playing tic-tac-toe, and there's like, you see a pattern, like the top row is doing a pattern, the next row is doing a pattern. And the first like 10, 15 questions are like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. But once you get to the ladder, it starts to get... you really don't see the patterns.
I did one like 2 months ago for my autism test, and it was the same thing. It was like you start out and you're like, oh, this is going fine. And then at the end, you're like, holy shit, I haven't done math in 20 years. Like, what's going on? Yeah, it was crazy.
So the real question is, after you guys dropped trowel and measured, who ate the Yoki cookie?
Only
the first 5 minutes.
It's late. It's not
GTO
that late.
Wizard has made some
6 p.m., not
improvements.
6 a.m.
Was it the lowest score?
My belly is full.
Well, my question is, why did you guys all have to do an IQ test?
It's, you know, we have to...
This is Andre's form of entertainment.
We have to talk to Andre. Like, he's the head of the company. You know, what he says goes.
This is Andre's form of entertainment. It's like walking in the room and looking at Conrad and just being like, I'm going to choke you out.
Yeah.
I'm going to beat his little ass next time he comes in here.
All right, relax. You still haven't gotten out of the chokehold he put you in last
That's how you get him here.
That's true.
Andre's out here putting people in chokeholds. He's got a higher IQ than any of us. Like, what can't Andre do, you know?
Apparently
show up.
run a podcast.
Show up, yeah.
Show up and run.
His fucking job
Touche,
for this
fair,
company.
Fair enough. Wow.
He just says, "You only call me when you have problems." I say, "You only talk to us when we have anything to say to you.
Yeah.
You don't try to reach out to us.
Yeah, he's our abandoned father.
You're not a good dad.
No, he's a bad dad. Bad guy.
You only reach out when you have problems. Well, you don't even speak to us at all."
But he's a smart dad who could choke us out. So
That's true.
At least he's got that.
Yeah. Yeah, chicks are into both those things. All right, enough of Andre's love life. There is another update to the GTO Wizard Fair Play Check saga. So they released an update today, basically including more specifics to the Fair Play Check in order to lessen the false positives. This includes the solution will break down to the exact second that it was run. We were kind of talking about this a bit off air. That's not really all that pertinent
Did
of
you really
information.
ask if I was above 100?
You were being shy.
That's kind of fucked up.
Well, you were being shy.
Hey man, do you not remember when that one person found their IQ test and they realized that they got an 88?
I do not remember.
This was on like the Reddit "Am I the asshole" or
Oh.
something.
Guapo,
It was Forrest Gump.
It was, listen.
Guapo, you realize you show him a hand history every day, right?
It's like we teach you nothing.
Hey, look, if 100 is average, a lot of people have IQs below 100.
Yeah,
Right.
like maybe half of them.
Yes.
Be respectful.
And for what it's worth, it was your opportunity to, like, you being very shy and not wanting to say the number. Now I force you to have to respond whenever I say, "Were you above or below 100?"
It's true.
You know, because if you're below, now silence speaks volume.
My apologies.
He
I
was
was pretty
negative.
confident you weren't below 100, Guap.
Thank you.
You know, you're one standard deviation above. It's important. You're a smart man. 80th percentile. All right. So in this update, they break down the solution being run down to the second, which I imagine is meaningful to maybe the operator. Probably not all that meaningful to people who are trying to figure out if they're being cheated or not, because it's going to be difficult for them to go through the hand history and decipher to the exact second through which a decision is being made in a hand. Perhaps, I guess, if you have like the replay feature available and in the text, it tells you like so-and-so activated time bank and how many seconds were taken off.
I mean, in like ACR and stuff like that, you can figure it out. Like, I mean, if you're running like a HUD or something.
Yeah, I guess like you could maybe reverse engineer it. Anyway, whatever. The details there. It doesn't hurt to have more details ever. You know, it's always good to have more information over less. They're also adding the stack depth at which it was run. Now, I guess this is a question I have for you guys because I'm not super certain, but are we of the impression that the majority of people that we think are using GTO Wizard nefariously are using GTO Wizard AI or GTO Wizard lookup database?
Probably lookup is quicker, right?
Lookup is quicker, I would assume, right?
Yeah, but it's also less practical to execute.
I think
Right.
it depends.
But it doesn't matter if it's less practical. It's a time thing. Like you're under a time crunch.
Right, but what I mean is like you can't. If your opponent uses just one size, then that's going to alter the sim to the point where your response is going to be totally different than what it would be if your opponent had 5 different sizes and you just were responding to that one size.
To be fair, this is probably the worst form of cheating that somebody could execute. And I don't think anybody who's being accused thus far is also being accused of being very good players. So, I mean, we honestly, like, part of me just feels like this is all for naught because I feel like anybody who's using like Wizard database lookup to cheat is probably just like losing in the pool anyway. But yeah, like, I don't know if AI is too wonky to use in game. I guess we could just like test it. Like fire
No,
up,
you can't. No.
no, you could like fire up some play money tables and just see like how long it takes
Hey man,
to set up an AI sim.
people use hard-earned dollars for those Zynga chips.
Well, you don't have to play Zynga. I mean, there are plenty of play money games that don't cost anything. It seems like it's worth testing because obviously the AI is like really powerful. Like that could be very impactful. And I'm not saying that there's that big. Well, no, I guess I am. There's that big of a discrepancy, I think, between the lookup database and the AI. Whenever you're talking about executable strategies and the EV you derive from them. Like if you run a simple AI sim with one size and you're able to employ that in game, it's probably going to be worth a fair amount, even if you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Like if you can follow a pre-flop chart and then you can follow that sim and you have no idea, like if we could teach Michelle to do this, she would become a bot pretty quickly. Right? Like that's effectively what you would do is be replicating a bot.
Yeah.
All you need is Taylor Swift to play one hand of poker.
That's it, man. That's it. The whole thing pops off. Yeah. So I guess the reason I brought that up was because
enough of the Taylor Swift and the dating, please.
My initial instinct when they added stack depth was like, oh, this isn't very relevant because people are just using the lookup tool where the stack depths are fixed.
Right.
Right. But if it's most people are using the AI. Or more importantly, the thing we care about policing the most is preventing people from using the AI. Now the stack depth variable is a really important one to know. Obviously, like smart people will manipulate it, a standard deviation one way or the other. If you're 140 effective and you put 150 or 163 or 170, probably isn't going to change the strategy that much. So again, like it's difficult because we're armed with this tool to effectively crowdsource security and self-police. The issue is that the data we get back is riddled with noise and we're unsure exactly how strong the signal is, right? So there's false positives. There's a lot of manipulation of the details ever so slightly that could make a positive hit inconsistent. Changing the bottom card or reversing the suits or, manipulating the stack depth
like
ever so slightly.
The small things.
Yeah, the tiny little intricate details where, like, if you're pretty good at understanding how solvers work, changing a 2 to a 3 probably isn't going to alter things much or, being smart enough to use red suits instead of black suits.
Like the difference between Ace King 6 and Ace King 7 is not going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not going to be much in the EV sense. And then finally, it includes the game format, which I guess matters some, but maybe they're specifically saying the difference between cash and MTTs.
That's what I would expect.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking like the difference between like limit, pot limit, no limit.
Well, they don't even have limit.
They don't have
limit or pot limit.
Yeah,
on
that's
Wizard,
true.
So.
Well, you can still utilize it though. You would just have to.
Right, but who plays pot limit? Hold
Yeah.
I mean,
No, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know why my mind gravitated towards there. I guess I was just thinking about different game formats. But yeah, so I guess it's going to list if it's an MTT or cash, which isn't very important now, but will be very critical in the future, I think. Actually, it's probably helpful now because that way you eliminate false positives where somebody was looking up an MTT spot. Mm-hmm. Although, again, this is something that you could just manipulate. Yeah. Right? You could just check the box of it being an MTT spot, but you happen to be 150 big blinds deep.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But then it's going to give you no rake ranges. It's going to give you no rake big blind anti ranges. So at least
that's true.
Your ranges are going to be off.
Yep, that's true.
If you're because all their MTT spots have antis.
Correct.
There's no pre-anti
and no
MTT
rake
ranges. Yeah, there's no rake. So
do they account for ICM?
At the very least, you neutralize people's ability to just use cash ranges for MTT or vice versa because the ranges are just wrong.
What if they're just self-imported ranges? Would it just default to cash, you think?
I don't know, but it would be much clunkier to implement that given how Wizard AI works. Like you'd have to be constantly copy pasting across, and it would just be a lot harder to actually do it.
I haven't played with it yet, but if it's anything like the Ruse setup, it's just one click. You have folders with saved ranges in it, and you just click them once, and they're loaded.
Yeah. I guess.
So you just click the spot.
I guess you would have to preemptively, before a session, you'd have to build an archive of all your pre-saved ranges and then just import them each hand by hand.
Anybody who's studying seriously would just have that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when I was studying for airball, I had everything from single raise to 6-bet pots just pre-saved on Ruse. And then it was just each one of them were their own folders.
Right. But then the reason you had that was because Ruse didn't have a solve archive, right? Because for me, I use Wizard every single day, but I only have a few saved ranges because I'm using the pre-fills so much, and then I'm just tweaking them a little bit. I don't even need to save ranges.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's you would have to go to the effort of building up all the saved ranges. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. And I imagine they would just default to cash anyway.
Yeah. Either way, the ranges are going to be wrong if you try to use cash or MTT.
Yeah, that's fair.
Game.
So the follow-up to this then is, with all this new information, contact your poker room's integrity department if you find multiple matches for boards and play times. Provide the spots ID. So I'm guessing that's the hand history number. and ask them to contact us at fairplay@gtowizard.com. Be aware of potential false positives and refrain from drawing conclusions until investigations are done. Some lookups might be from observers. After connecting with operators, we will assist in finalizing a decision. So that last part gives me a lot of hope. I don't know how practical it is. I don't know how much operators are going to clue GTO Wizard in on the process of looking into these situations. And I also don't know how much operators are actually even going to look into our complaints if we send them. But it does seem like GTO Wizard is making the promise of if there's communication, then they will go the lengths of actually investigating and then publishing conclusions. So I'm not sure what this is going to look like. I don't know if this will result in GTO Wizard publicly posting a blacklist, publicly exonerating people who are not guilty, both, neither, not really sure.
It's kind of interesting because it's like, it seems like GTO is like, okay, we reached out to you guys, we tried, like to operators. Mm-hmm. Now we're gonna send the mob after you. I don't
think that was the intention. I think the intention was more so like we made this really powerful tool for study, and people are using it and abusing it. So it's kind of on us to take responsibility and figure out a way to make the community more safe. So let's empower the community to crowdsource the security and basically just throw up red flags when they see them.
Yeah. The
issue is, I don't think that they're very privy to like how security works in the poker space, where there's zero communication between operators and the community. So when we start like raising our pitchforks and saying like, hey, there's a lot of shit going on here and we have semi hard-clad proof, we want answers and we want them now. And the operators are just like, thank you for your service. We appreciate that you submitted this information. Now go fuck off. It's going to lead to people getting dragged.
Yeah.
Right? It just inevitably has to.
Something I think that is kind of getting a little bit lost in all the talk of like, how do we find these micro ways of looking up individual hands or figuring out who's cheating in individual hands, is looking at the large scale data that GTO Wizard probably has for how Wizard AI and all their tools are being used. Because it strikes me that it might be possible to look at some of it and say, okay, well, we can identify that this type of solution or this part of the solution library is being accessed at an unusually high volume at this time of day, which happens to coincide with peak traffic hours on this site, or happens to coincide with when all the Europeans are playing MTTs or something like that. And that might start to give us a bit more of a clue of where to go in terms of looking for where this stuff is actually taking place. Because I think right now the problem that we're dealing with, or one of them, is that anybody in any form of online poker could be using this at any time. Well, that's the perception that we kind of have.
Right.
So we don't have a starting point of like, what are the most important avenues of cheating for us to shut off immediately? We don't really know whether this is taking place more in MTTs or in cash. We don't really know whether it's taking place more on some sites or others. Like, we just kind of are completely in the dark. So I'd like to see someone take like a macro approach and try to figure out, maybe can we use some large scale data to try to figure something out.
Are we privy to that data though?
Well, what I mean is Wizard probably has some form of that.
Right.
I don't think we are.
Yeah, I think them publishing their data would be very helpful.
Yeah,
I kind of encourage Matt to do that as well.
Okay. Yeah, because that's kind of what I'm saying. That I think I don't expect them to publish any sensitive data about their actual consumer base,
right.
But like publishing some info about who's using what tools, where in the world, what time, just in a broad sense.
Yeah, like would YouTube actually, analytics.
Yeah, like analytics for that would be actually kind of helpful, I think.
Yeah, what I said to him is I think it's important that sooner than later they publish what the false positive rate is, because like they should be able to figure that out. They know how many users they have. They know on average what amount of users are online, and we know how many flop subsets there are.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that two people looked up the exact same flop at the exact same time, we should be able to come up with a theoretical probability of that.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, one of the members of the Redline University discords that originally called out UR Nymir, said that he ran 90 random flop subset with PO and then ran them against the fair play check. So he basically just like entered 90 different flops in the fair play check at random times. And when online has the highest traffic, which is Sunday evening, he got back 15 out of 50 for a match, which was a 30% match rate. Wednesday morning, where it's really low traffic, he got 7 out of 40 matches, which is 17.5%. And he's basically of the impression that because he just randomly chose flops, that these are not actual hits, and that they're all false positives. But I'm not really sure why we would be able to arrive at the conclusion that they're false positives.
So he was just running random flops at random times to see if it matched, to see if the site told him this is a hit.
Yeah, he ran 50 flops during peak time on Sunday.
Yeah.
And he got 30% match rate.
And 40 flops on a Wednesday.
Right.
Okay.
I got 17 matches. And basically he's saying that like he doesn't think cheating's occurring at that rate. So there has to be a bunch of false positives here. But that seems awfully strange to me.
It seems very arbitrary. Like you could just as equally react by saying, holy shit, there's a lot of cheating happening.
Right.
You know, like how do you know other than your own instinct about how much cheating
I think what he's implying is because they're random flops not actually taken from real hands that were played, that the likelihood that those exact flops were dealt out at that exact time and somebody was looking them up is a low probability.
Yeah, but there's a lot of hands.
There's a lot of hands being dealt. Right.
Like there's a lot of hands being dealt every second of every day.
Yeah, so like if we're talking about, a specific time on a Sunday, there might be, I don't want to guesstimate because I don't know how many tables are running and how many hands are actually getting dealt out, but I'm sure it's in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands.
I want to see the data like overall of like everywhere, like where people live, like how many flops were ran or boards were ran on a Sunday at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Well, I think the most important
thing per city.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to recognize is that at peak times he was getting more hits. At peak times, it's more probable that people are cheating, not less probable. You know what I mean?
Right. If the lookups are happening in correlation with the amount of people playing, then that should signal cheating.
Right. And also there's the element that people could be observing and looking it up. People could be looking it up after the hand ends.
That is true.
Right. He doesn't have a time to correlate it with, right? Because they're just random flops. So it's like you just pull a random flop and run it to see if there's a hit and it comes back a hit. It's like, okay, well, you don't have a time to correlate that to. So it's not even necessarily a positive or a false positive. It's just that this board was looked up on like at that time, So
you mentioned people looking it up after the hand ends.
Yeah.
Does it still pull up a positive for that?
Well, yeah, because it pulls up a positive, but you would be able to disqualify it, technically speaking, because the timestamp would be after the end of the hand.
Right. I was just going to say, like, I think people shouldn't, if the hand is over and then they look it up afterwards, they shouldn't be punished for that.
Well, it's still against TOS, for what it's worth.
What? So if I finish a session at midnight and I look up a hand the next morning.
No. If you're still playing, if you still have active tables,
you can't.
And you're using AI, you're using database lookups, you're using anything along that sort.
Yeah,
you can't use it at all.
Right, because they can't police whether or not you're doing it in real time.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just a theoretical thing.
From the perspective of the site not being able to police how you're using it, I get that.
Yeah.
I just mean, I think somebody, if they play a hand and then they still have a table open somewhere else and they're like, oh, I'm curious about that hand, I'm going to look it up.
Right, yeah.
I don't think that person should be labeled a cheater.
No, of course. No. It's just very, now we get back into the weeds of like, what is considered cheating, because it's so difficult for us as users who don't have all the data to look at, right? So basically, like, let's say a hand ends and you go and look up the spot. Now, I look to see if I'm being cheated and I see that hand comes back a minute 45, 1 minute and 45 seconds after the hand had started, right? Yeah. Now I need to figure out if the hand was over or not within that minute 45 time frame.
Yeah.
And that's more effort than I'm going to put into it. I'm just going to say, well, that's well within the reasonable amount of time where I could have been cheated.
Yeah.
And if I start to see a consistent pattern there, like, you know, maybe somebody looks it up after every single hand. And now all of a sudden, like, I start looking up all the hands I play against you specifically, and I get like 12 positives. Well, you're just looking them up after the hand ends, but I can't know that unless I go through and do my due diligence and actually track the time frame. So this is where the seconds, I guess, comes into play and can be helpful.
How many time banks were used?
Right. But I would have to do that on every single.
Yeah, on every single hand.
And it's like, I'm not going to do that, right?
Decision,
so now we have to trust the operators to do it. And again, that's where the communication gets cut off. So it's a really messy fucking thing where there are going to be a lot of people falsely accused, or at least, let me rephrase, there are going to be a lot of people accused. And what comes from that, we'll never really know.
Yeah,
right?
It's going to be hard to determine who's guilty and who's innocent of the accused.
For us, it'll be hard
the
for us.
operators are going to know.
The operators the operators should very easily be able to know who's cheating, and the people who are being accused should relatively easily be able to discredit accusations. Right. Like, it should be pretty easy for you to pull up a timestamp and compare it to the positive result and just say, like, look, man, there's a 2-minute and 20-second window between when this hand ended and when this spot was looked up. This isn't me. Yeah. That kind of thing.
I think the time bank thing is really interesting because in theory, with enough data, you could establish what the like timing is or the cadence is of someone who's cheating, in that they look up the flop and then there's X amount of time on average that goes by, and then they look up the turn and then they look up the river, et cetera, et cetera. So you could establish how long it takes on average when someone is cheating in a hand and using the AI to like guide their decisions. And if you could do that, you could start to identify instances within the archive that fit that cadence of when someone is clicking on like go to the next street and things like that. You know? So there's a lot of ways that I think this macro level insight could be helpful to the situation.
I think that there's a part of it all where just because now that there's this lookup potential cheat software, people kind of want answers as fast as they possibly can, where it's just going to be in steps by steps. You know, like just because there's a fair play system doesn't mean you're going to find all the cheaters. But people kind of theoretically want, now that this device exists, that everyone catches all the cheaters. Where it's just going to take a while to really kind of hash it out. It's not going to be an overnight process of trying to clean up the streets.
Yeah, I also think there's an element of it where it's like we're being asked to, on some level, just kind of trust that cheaters are being caught. But I think that people feel uncomfortable with that on some level because they never get the opportunity to have the cheater be like officially outed, right? Like there's never a time when when it's like, this person is the person who's cheating. It's just a screen name that gets banned and they move on and nobody ever knows who it actually is.
And we don't even know why they get banned. Or they don't even tell us that they get banned. They just disappear.
Right. But I think on some level, and this is not necessarily a good thing, it's just a tribal human thing. I think what people want is to be able to know who the person is so we can say, shame, you know, this person's a cheat, like get rid of this person, like they did with Ali.
And public shaming can be a deterrent as well.
Yeah, that's really important, I think, because that's really our only weapon as far as like self-policing goes. Is threatening people's livelihood, you know, similar to what happened with Ali. Now Ali, we were able to compile a lot of let's call it circumstantial evidence that kind of smoked him out to the point where he self-reported. Like imagine getting it to the point where you know, enough evidence had mounted where everybody knew that he was guilty and you know, couldn't necessarily put their finger on it because they aren't operators themselves and can't see what's going on behind closed doors. But we knew he was getting banned all over the place. Live stops start to take action. He starts getting banned from there. And then he decides that the way to save face is to come forward, make a public video, and say that, yes, he was guilty of multi-accounting, but only for a brief period. Then he stopped and did it again because everybody thought he was cheating anyway. And it's like... honestly, I almost think that like he got baited into it because we were so focused on RTA for such a period of time because it was the newest, latest, greatest threat that we downplayed how big of a deal collusion and multi-accounting actually is. Right. And that it's actually a bigger form of cheating as far as like, you know, just increasing bottom line and ROI goes than RTA likely would be. So he just like comes out and self-reports that not only did he do it in the past, but he also did it in the more recent past because fuck everybody.
He might as well have been like, I'm doing it right now. Like I'm
and he
in a
is,
tournament
and he for sure is too. It's just like, you know, he's running some sort of app game scheme through his girlfriend's Instagram account.
No, I'm pretty sure that
rugged.
I'm pretty sure it got rugged.
Yeah. No, I mean, color me shocked.
Yeah, something had happened. I feel like somebody was trying to cash out. I feel like I saw something. Somebody was trying to cash out basically, and he got no response.
Imagine being dumb enough to fall for that fucking bit. Like the entire community has ostracized this person for being dishonest and like clearly just doing anything that they can to make money at someone else's expense, and then they just come out with like a VIP app club.
Yeah, it's like here, take all my money, and you tell me back, you give me back what you think I deserve.
I trust this person with my money.
Right. It's just like, man, how ridiculous. And even if like they were paying out appropriately, imagine thinking that you're not just like up against 8 of his accounts.
Yeah,
it's just like you and 8 Alis in a 9-handed game where rake is 10% uncapped, and he's never going to let you leave with $1.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is going on here?
I could beat that game.
Sure. Honestly, arrogance.
Happy birthday to his dog, though.
Yeah, shout out to the pup.
Shout out to Barbie.
Arrogance really does run rampant here. So yeah, I'm not really sure again what's going to come from this GTO Wizard stuff. We're probably going to talk about it a little bit more on Friday when we have Jeremiah on, kind of get his thoughts as far as like what he's been seeing this year online and everything else.
So we're having Jeremiah on.
Finally,
somebody just said you should have Jeremiah on. Talk about this.
He will be on. He'll be on Friday.
Awesome.
I feel like he's like Prodigy number 2 if Landon's Prodigy number 1, you know.
He's
number one.
Landon
he's number one.
He's my first coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
First one.
Landon just likes the spotlight more.
Yeah. Jeremiah is the father of the sim.
He's more of
his child.
He's more of an adult than me. He's married and shit.
And from this, Landon was birthed.
Yeah. If he's the
Jeremiah
father of the
is
sim,
your daddy.
That's a weird family tree right there.
Well,
Jeremiah the sim, Landon. Like,
yeah, I mean when you're a sim, it doesn't take much time to procreate.
Yeah, I guess not.
Just run another iteration, you know.
Yeah.
No big deal. Landon's PO2. All right, going into I guess an adjacent conversation. Let's talk a little bit about this boycott of GG Poker high stakes PLO. So both George and Galfond have been tweeting about this over the last few days. I believe, is today the 3rd or the 4th?
Today's the 4th.
Today's the 4th. Okay, so 2 days ago was 1 week of the official boycott of high stakes PLO. Galfond gave us a nice little rundown of the details of what was going on. Basically, the pros calculated that the average net rake, post-rake back, that they were paying was around 5 big blinds per 100 at 6 max tables, and their average net winnings were about 2.5 big blinds per 100. So, in other words, much like most environments, the top of the food chain was eating and everybody else was paying the bill. So the majority of players are going to be losing even after rake back. From the regular pool. Of course, whales are contributing to that loss rate, which makes the games appealing. So it looks as though the heads-up PLO net rake appears to be around 10 big blinds per 100 per player, and that stayed consistent as the stakes grew. Generally, that's not the case in most other sites. Usually you pay less rake as you go higher up, and it proves to be a bit of a loss leader for the rooms so that they can say that they're running the high stake games. For GG, I think that they kind of created a different model where instead of it being a loss leader for them, it was more of a loss leader for the regs, because what they did was incentivize whales to come play and give them a large chunk of the rake back. So with that said, Galfond was basically saying that he heard second-handedly that GG actually wasn't even profiting from these high stake games. And what the regs rightfully pointed out was that if the win rate is only 2.5 big blinds per 100, then the variance is going to be incredibly high. Edges are going to be insanely small, and it's going to be very difficult for the pool to be sustained because the rake is effectively going to gobble them all up. That led to the ultimate boycott. This rake was higher than the high stakes boycott that took place at the no limit tables. And George posted an update 2 days ago as far as where they're at now 1 week into the actual boycott itself. So he posted the rake table. It looks like the full table rake was on average between 4.9 and 6.4 big blinds per 100, and heads up rake was between 9.1 and 11.2. This effectively, as he put it, said leads to extreme bum hunting, which GG claims to stand against because it's impossible for regs to win in three-handed battles. And then obviously, like, the heads up games really just never got off because there wasn't much incentive to reg battle in those situations when you can't really beat the rake regardless of how good you are. So, you know, it looks like they're getting a lot less traction than the no limit high stakes boycott received earlier this year. And I think it all comes back to that initial statement of GG claiming that they're not actually making money from these high stakes games. So I guess I'll ask you guys, what onus do you think that the operator actually has here to put out a fair product that's beatable, in order to, you know, kind of be able to promote that they have a laddering system where you actually can't graduate to nosebleeds?
That's a hard question.
Oh, did you guys hear that? You heard that? It's coming.
The face.
The face. It's just like, I mean, it's not really on them. Like, can they? It's not a should they, shouldn't they? You know, at the end of the day, business can do its best for them. Like, their incentives aren't as aligned as players. Where if the lower stakes volume already gets enough rake or enough action and traffic as is, they don't really need to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that, it's not like, would I personally, if I was like kind of up and coming, trying to play PLO high stakes professionally, would I want that? Yeah, of course I would. But what I want and what the site wants are two different things.
Right. This seems like a case where
that's what the face is for, you know? It's like the...
Yeah. This seems like a case where the pros have to find a way to convince GG that it is in their best interest to lower the rake, as opposed to just pleading with them, right? Because pleading with a corporation to lower its prices has never worked in anything.
Like Oliver Twist.
Right. So
Please, sir, can I have
it's
some
just
less rake, please.
They're only going to lower the rake if they believe they will make more money by lowering the rake. So if that's the case, if it's true that they will make more money by lowering the rake, then the community has to present a case to them as to why that's the case. If it's not true, then the boycott is just gonna lose in the end, because that's kind of what happens, and that sucks. But boycotting and not playing is the only way to send the site the message that this is not in your best interest to do this because you're losing money now, right? So if they boycott and the rate goes down because they boycotted, then it'll turn out well for everybody except GG. But if they boycott and GG just says, well, we weren't making money on these games anyway, it won't shock me a ton, because GG is not going to do anything that hurts their own bottom line.
They're not going to bend to the will of the people for the good of the, you know.
But they also just want to have everything available on their site, I think.
GG?
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that makes them more money, like if losing money on this makes them money somewhere else, in the long run, they're still going to do it, right? And we can present a case to them that says, you will make more money long run if you do this. But if something is unequivocally, undisputedly losing their money, they are going to say no, right? Like there's no way you're just going to convince a business out of the goodness of their heart to make less money. So
it's kind of a fascinating problem set, right? Because not that I want to drudge up old conversations, but this does kind of circle all the way back to the more rake is better concept that I think Daniel was trying to convey. And the notion behind it is very similar to what you see in app games, right? It effectively would privatize high stakes online on GG, where only recreationals would be willing to pay an exorbitant amount of rake, and therefore they would be the only ones willing to sit the games. But then it becomes this, like, you know, sort of back and forth until you reach an equilibrium where it's like, well, some pros will think that there are enough recreationals that they're beating the rake for a high enough win rate, and then they'll start to play again, and the boycott breaks down that way. Currently, 1 week in, the latest post on 2+2 was that the boycott's going well. There's apparently a recreational player, Vasca Buenacao, who previously used to fill up PLO 100K and generate a 5-person wait list. He's just open sitting and getting no action. So if the only argument I think that could be presented by the regs is that GG needs to do their damnedest to make their recreationals happy. Mm-hmm. So you would really have to paint a very compelling argument that these guys who are generating the largest loss rate in these games, and as a byproduct, paying a big chunk of the rake, that they're important enough customers to the overall GG ecosystem for this boycott to be heard, and at a bare minimum, shorthanded and heads-up rake being lowered to the point where it's sustainable for reg battling. Now, I don't necessarily know that that's going to happen. And I guess I have a couple suspicions as to why. First, they already bent on the no-limit side, and I can't imagine that there are that many recs on GG that wouldn't just otherwise go play no-limit, right? Like, if they're really the type that gets in there and they want to dust and they just they're so wealthy that they just want to play.
No, I think there's...
How much of a degen can anyone be? Is like, I refuse to play no limit.
I think some degens are that way.
PLO.
Like when it comes to that, because they've been playing poker for a while and they just over fucking hold them. And they just play PLO now.
If you can't play PLO, you can just play no limit and just play a 60% VPIP. Like it's the same thing.
You can kind of do what you want, but also I guess like the contrary to that is they can just take their business elsewhere, right?
Yeah, right.
They're the valued customer, not the alternative. Now,
some people just really don't want to play no limits.
Yeah, that's fair. The other thing I think that the boycotters have working against them is that none of these recs seem to be showing up at the other sites. So high stakes are all effectively dead.
Everywhere else but here.
Correct, except for GG. So it really is kind of an unfortunate aspect of the free market at play here, where GG can charge as much as people are willing to pay without giving an inch, even if it's not beatable. And the regs really have to find a way for these games to break down and threaten the ecosystem collapsing as a whole in order for the boycott to actually be heard.
How?
I think, it's working so far, but how long will this stalemate last is the bigger question, right? Like,
we're going to get into like labor politics here because it's going to be, it's like a parallel to the strikes going on in Hollywood and stuff. It's like, the studio's trying to wait out the writers until they're all homeless and they can't afford to pay their rent, and the studio's expecting them to give up on the strike, and then the people doing the strike are all like helping each other out with the bills so the strike can continue, and it's like it's an equilibrium that eventually develops. Yeah, it is interesting because like the Writers Guild is a massive union, so like they are able to support one another. That's the advantage they have. We don't have a union.
We don't have a union, but it's a very small pool. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly how many players are involved in this boycott, but it's probably sub 100. I mean, the no limit one was sub 100. So the PLO one, I'm certain, is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50.
Yeah, I was assuming it was like a dozen.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah. It literally might be. Yeah.
If GG waits them out, I mean, some people that are up and coming in PLO might just like not be part of the boycott and like start playing.
That's possible. It's also possible that, these guys can get a hold of the recreationals themselves and just move the traffic to another place, even if it's a privatized app. I'm sure that that's taking place. I mean, just knowing the politics of live poker,
same thing,
and how private live games operate, it's all about using that sort of currency of bring a player, get a seat type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, if you could just become the game runner yourself, you can just offer a much more fair gambling environment for all those involved.
Like app game type shit?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's a big part of
so much money
being a high stakes player. That. Yeah, it's very difficult to avoid as a high stakes player playing in some sort of trusted app games.
I know that so much money flows through these app game streets, like way more than the regulated markets, if you will.
Yeah,
I don't know how. I mean, you mean like regulated online? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking out of my ass a little bit, but
what's new?
Well, I'm not talking out of my ass because I know people that know people, man.
Your people know people?
I'm just like close enough with enough people who work on the operating side that I'm not just fully speculating, but I'm loosely speculating when I say I think that the black markets all equal are all equal to or greater than the liquidity of the gray markets and the regulated markets. So like if you take like the GGs, the stars, the ACRs, the WSOPs, etc., and you put them all together, I think that they're probably around the same liquidity as the bros and the PPPs.
That's a very interesting take.
Go on.
There's a lot of people playing online on like these websites that you're speaking.
Yeah,
there are.
Like I don't know if there's that many fucking app games,
bro.
Like I know there's a lot. I know there's plenty. Like
I mean, to be clear, I'm counting like Club GG as part of the black market, not the gray.
Okay.
Right, like Club GG. You know, all that stuff.
I guess there's probably a lot of app games overseas too.
I'm not certain of this, but I think Poker Bros is one of the top 3 poker sites in the world. Wow. Like outside, not for real money. I'm discluding Zynga, obviously.
We're also
but like, I could see
Stars
that.
GG.
I actually could see that.
I think it's like between ACR and Poker Bros for third.
I mean, now if you even think about the amount of high stakes protected app environments where people play for hundreds of thousands of dollars, like all these app games exist.
I'm very confident that there's more 2550 and higher in apps than there are on
For
regulated
sure.
sites.
Like 200, 400.
Yes, I'd agree with
200,
you.
400 online is like dead. Where are you playing?
On like regulated sites
Yes.
and gray sites, yes. Certainly not in app games.
Exactly. Like on app games, there could be 501k.
I personally know of at least a half dozen 100, 200 games or bigger on app games. And like those are just, I mean, when I say a fraction of a tiny circle of people, like that's literally just me knowing of like 6 or 7 app games that run by knowing like 30 high stakes players.
Right.
Right. And so it's just like that discludes most of the world. When you start to include like, Europe and Asia and Australia and like Brazil and South America and all these other continents and regions, like they're going to have dozens upon dozens in each one of these little markets themselves. Right.
If you have the ability to have like call it big piece of pie, why wouldn't you take the big piece of the pie?
Kind of, yeah.
If you can just create the app game, get people involved.
As much as I think COVID gave a spike to these gray markets in online poker,
because regulated was fine, and then people like Poker Bros.
I think it
up.
created a black market that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Right. Like prior to COVID, the only apps that existed that I was aware of was Poker Masters and
this was before my time, yeah.
and Poker Fishes, which were both Asian sites, and then
this was Detox used a lot.
Yeah,
they played a lot on Poker Masters.
Yeah, and then Poker King, which eventually became WPT Global. They got they bought
PKC, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
They bought like all of WPT brand, but they're moving into gray. Like they're not just like a random offshoot black market type of app
like
anymore.
Trust your okay, we give you this credit line. If you don't deal with it, like someone else is on the hook.
They're just very much built like
they're
just very much built like GG.
Yeah.
Like to my knowledge, WPT Global is kind of framed very similarly to how GG is framed.
Makes sense.
And trying to move into more regulated markets, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas when you look at Bros, that doesn't interest them at all. So yeah, I mean, like it's a really tough ask for both the players and the operator itself to maybe continue even running these games.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because like what goes on these apps, the public doesn't see.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of like weird fuck shit that could not be happening.
I mean, I'm looking at a 30-minute video right now.
Weird fuck shit. Weird fuck shit. Yes.
Where it's like people collude, card share. There's a lot of like gray area stuff. Like there's a lot of gray things in the black market too.
Gray is understating it, but I'm looking at a 30-minute long YouTube video that's just like the top hands played on GG PLO. So it's just like top pots, right? Like this is people get to casually observe.
Yeah.
It further promotes like the path and the livelihood and the ability to rise for something, right? If you're loyal to a site, there's a way to go from penny stakes all the way up to nosebleeds. But like
the path is just so icky now.
Well, it's ickier if once you get to a certain stake, you have to go start curating clubs for some black market app
or
that you have no idea if it's secure.
Learn Mandarin or something. Like you're like 5 years away from having to learn Mandarin to get into games.
I took some in middle school, man. I can help you.
I don't know.
6th to 8th grade.
I don't think those games are soft anymore. Those guys fucking go hard in the paint, man. Once Macau opened, the player pool over there like put the fucking time in. What I saw in 2014 when they were all coming over here and like really just fucking never folding and just like they have infinite money and they're just playing all the hands compared to like what I see like Paul doing now on the Triton Tour. It's like this guy fucking puts in work, man. You know, and
smart people.
Yeah, I think he like represents a whole conglomerate of people who want to gamble at their core, but also like don't want to lose.
Right? Well, they want to gamble in some instances like responsibly.
Yeah,
it's like they'll take the worst of it in some spots, but they still kind of want to play good.
It's interesting because like I think we put a hyper focus on like Asia being the next major market because it hasn't really been too tapped by online, but it's actually a much more mature market than a lot of the others. Like if we compare Asia to like India, for example, like I think that market is a lot more. No, I know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. I
don't want to just say China. That's not really fair.
Right.
You know,
right? But I mean, the bulk of it comes from China because they have the most people.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, you mean like China and Japan and Vietnam?
There's actually
Japan's
Stars India. There's actually Stars India.
Right, but that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the only thing.
You know something funny?
What?
For like some of these people, all it takes is one young chump to call them out, and they just get better. You know?
Go on.
Well, I mean, I was in Landon's case. You know, he called out Bill, and he just went and got better.
Right.
You know, all it takes is one instance like that, and people just get better.
So you're basically just saying he needs to find whoever the whale is over in India, and just spot him 9, and then you're gonna see a big boom.
Yeah,
like that's it. Indian poker.
There's got to be some Indian whales.
No, you're just making the whales better. We've learned our. We're not trying to make the whales better anymore. We learned our lesson. Fucking hell.
But yeah, like Brazil is another market that isn't quite nearly as mature, but the interest there is skyrocketing. I think was it Felipe earlier this year posted that they're running their first major series down there.
They
now.
have 2 of them. I think one in November and one in January, I believe.
Okay.
I think the bigger one being in January. We got to get that Brazilian
soccer player money. We got to get like Neymar's money just dumped on the table.
But Aguero's playing on GG.
Aguero, like I fucking saw him at WSOP. Like it was surreal for me. Like I've been watching this guy on TV for 15 years, and he just walks past me in the corridor.
Bro, athletes like to gamble. I was watching Pat McAfee show the other day, and they were doing an interview with Davis, the wide receiver from Buffalo. I can't remember. Oh my God,
Gabe Davis.
How can I forget Santosh?
Yeah.
What a dream he is. He's the happiest person I've ever met in my life.
Gabe Davis.
Gabe Davis
scores the first touchdown for every Bills game.
That's true.
It's absurd.
It's not Gabe Davis. Is he?
He's the one. He's the running. He's the
it
wide
is actually
receiver.
Gabe. Yeah, that's
Gabe
the kid
Davis.
we went to high school with.
I know.
Okay, that's why I didn't say Gabe because I thought I was just misremembering.
No, he glowed up, bro.
Okay, so they were interviewing him, and McAfee was like, "So I hear you do something special with the guys twice a week. You host a poker night?" He's like, "Yeah, man, we got like 9, 10, 11, 12. We don't like to play 13-handed, but you know." Jeez. And I'm like, wait, what? And then McAfee's like, I love poker. You know, he's like, what kind of stakes are you guys playing? And he's like, 5, 10. And I mean, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar broadcaster and a multi-million-dollar athlete, and they're like, oh, those pots get big.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, thousands of dollars, man. It's like,
I mean, that's a lot of money. No matter.
All I was envisioning was taking a trip to Seneca, Niagara, and just being like, on Tuesday nights, they're going to be running the Gabe Davis game. Yep. I'm going to hop into a little 5, 10, 20, just like back in 2005.
Remember all the hockey players used to play? The Sabres used to play there all the time.
It's funny, like, kind of being close with some people that love poker and play effectively recreationally, where they'll have, like, 7, 8-figure deals in other industries. And then in poker, it's like, I can't play 5-5, man. If I lose $2,500, I'm gonna fucking lose it. It's like there's a difference of the gamble.
There's a guy who plays in our game at Bellagio. I won't say what he's the CEO of, but just know that last year I think his salary was somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 million, and often he won't sit our game because 1-1 is too high.
$250 million.
Correct.
Like $250 million.
Correct.
Yeah, I got that.
100 too big.
Yeah.
That's a year?
A year.
You should run a
50-50.
Here's the thing.
A calc for him to show him what his risk of
probably
ruin is.
Right. Here's the thing. I could even be off by a magnitude of 10, and it really wouldn't matter, would it?
No.
Like if he was making 25 million a year,
2.5.
You're right.
Probably rolled for that.
it
To
probably
play,
still
like,
rolled to play.
fucking
I
once
don't
every
have
couple
25
weeks.
million. God damn it.
Yeah.
And he's not that bad. Like he just plays pretty tight. He lost Kings versus Aces the other day. He was like, that's it for me. Today's not like that.
It's crazy.
Literally lost like one buy-in at most.
It's like, I need to raise like 10 million for this company and like get all this shit done. And that doesn't happen. It's like, we'll just figure it out. And then poker, it's like, fuck, I just saw Aces versus Kings in the daily 1100. I'm gonna get the fuck. I can't fucking take it anymore.
Well, it's a control thing, right? Like you feel a certain level of aptitude and ability to
expertise.
Well, more importantly, ability to measure or calculate the confidence in your decision making, right? So it's like, you'll just go execute $100 million deal because you have a high degree of confidence that it's going to work out favorably. And even if you're wrong, like your expected loss is going to be relatively marginal, right?
You're still gonna have many million.
Yeah. Well, also just like when you lose in those types of deals, you don't lose the deal, you lose a fraction of it. Like you might make a minus 1% EV deal. It's never going to be minus 100% is my point.
You're never gonna fold pre on a deal.
Right. So you're just, you might make $100 or $100 million deal and you might lose $5 million before you have to cut ways and mitigate your loss or whatever. You're very unlikely to risk the 100, lose the 100 type of thing. In poker, it's all out of your hands, right? Like their confidence in their decisions is so low and cloudy that like they get kings and personality will dictate like how much risk they even want to take on with this hand. Some people are just like they'll go broke with deuces. So to see kings is, I'm speaking about myself mostly.
Don't talk about me like that.
But like you just
Talk about me like that.
You just look at it as like an absolute unbeatable hand, and then there are other people that are like so risk averse that like all they see is not aces, and that aces both exist and an ace can come on the flop, and these are two ways that they could potentially lose all of their money. So there's this certain disconnect that occurs where you no longer have control over the outcome, and you really don't have much control over the confidence of the decision making that you're actually taking part in. You just start to manufacture things that don't exist.
Well, it's definitely the difference between seeing poker as a game with some form of skill and ROI as a game of entertainment, where if it goes wrong, it's like, I don't want to spend 5 figures being entertained in this game if it goes wrong. Because the amount you win versus the amount you lose isn't a necessary equal trade-off, where if you win 5K, it's like whatever. If you lose 5K, it's like, why did I spend my time here and lose 5K?
I think that's fair, but I don't think people are thinking about it that way. I think that it's more the emotions, way more than the money, especially when you're talking about people who can afford it.
Emotions of loss?
Yeah. It's ironic because they sit down because they want to feel something, right? And then they get swept up in the chaos of the actual game itself, and they start to feel too much.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're just riding the roller coaster the entire time they're there. Their heart's pounding. They want a huge pot, and they've never been so elated before in their life. And the next thing they know, they're sitting on crumbs. And it's like, how could this happen to me type of thing? And you try to reverse engineer it all and figure out like where things could have gone differently, right?
Yeah.
You try to reach for that element of control, and it's just not fucking there. So I think that like
going home.
Yeah, I think it's the mental torture.
The control is going home.
Right.
I'm out of here. Get me the fuck out of here. I'm controlling myself to go home.
What's weird is I don't know where this comes from, but every soccer player that I've ever seen play poker, they all play super loose passive and super bad and splashy and everything. I've never seen soccer players like knitted up in that way that you're describing. So maybe we do need the soccer player money. Maybe they're all like loose aggro guys.
Yeah.
In some way.
I mean, that does sound like the absolute dream.
Need that Neymar money.
We can't get the Neymar money now though because he plays in Saudi Arabia now. He can't play poker.
Wow.
They probably let him play, but like there's not a lot of casinos in Saudi Arabia.
Is he still an ambassador for Stars?
Neymar? No, he hasn't been for a while.
So like those oil-rich countries are pretty fascinating, like Saudi Arabia, more specifically like Dubai. From what I understand, poker is actually really huge there, but their government. So there's like a whole weird kind of counterculture there, where places like Dubai, they don't give a fuck about where your money came from. Like they don't care about money laundering. They don't care about taxing people or anything along those lines. All they care about is that you don't do drugs.
Well, there's a huge difference between Dubai and Saudi Arabia, though.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was using Dubai as like the most extreme example, where they're like really loose as far as like government ties or government oversight comes, until it comes to something like specifically that is, I guess, a moral debate, which is drug usage in any capacity.
Alcohol too.
Yeah, and alcohol too. And obviously this has to do with the religious undertones of the nation, but gambling's always going to be a derivative there of that, right? Like, it's impossible not to
it's underworldy.
Yeah, it's impossible not to think of one and then kind of leap to the other. So as best as I understand it, and I'm kind of getting this secondhandedly from like Chris K, who lives out there now, as best I understand it, is like gambling, specifically poker, is kind of like a don't ask, don't tell type of thing. But you don't want to be the one caught running the game, which I guess is like a major deterrent in even getting games off.
That's like New York in the 90s.
Yeah, to some degree, but like,
except you don't get beheaded if you get
exactly. There's a big difference between going to New York
You're not
prison.
beheading people in Dubai.
No, I know.
Saudi Arabia.
I'm just kidding.
See, Saudi Arabia, you're getting.
This is the difference between Dubai and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, they actually behead you.
Places like Singapore too, if I'm not mistaken, like you can get the death penalty for.
Singapore is super strict on drugs.
For drugs, yeah.
You get arrested for like chewing gum.
Well, no, spitting your gum on the sidewalk.
Don't fucking litter, you pig.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
You'd be fucked, Matt.
Me?
Yeah,
you fucking have potato chips in front of the front door.
Potato chips aren't littering.
Yeah, I have food. All right, so Berkey, I guess, was walking outside the office.
All right.
Yes, go on.
What happened?
All right, go on.
I had a little grab bag of chips. We were about to go play pickleball, and I needed something. I was dying.
I was yearning.
So I opened the bag of chips, and then I realized I needed to lock the door. I was like, okay. So I walk out the door and I shut the door, and I'm holding the chips in the same hand that I'm holding the key. So I have the key out and I have the chips in my palm, and I go to put the key in, and then I lock it, which also turns the bag.
Now, what would a reasonable human being do?
Leave it there.
No.
It's outside.
A reasonable. It's literally
In
a
the
bag
walkway.
of chips. Laying like just all these chips on the floor or on the ground right in front of our door.
What if an animal got hungry?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of hungry animals out there right now.
That's fine.
Well, there
like,
obviously aren't, because this was yesterday and this is today.
They're just ants.
Yeah.
Well, don't eat
We're in the
them
desert. Ants don't
time
exist.
after time.
Yes, there's a lot of ants.
Go look at that.
They need to eat too, man. I'm here for the ecosystem.
It's absurd.
You needed help looking for that broom and dustpan.
What did you want me to do? Is pitch black out? You haven't changed the fucking outdoor light yet, so it's there's nothing I can do.
Blame it on you. Get the fuck out of here with this
The
shit.
manager gets to,
It sounds like a lot of displacement going on
He's the
here.
manager. I don't change light bulbs.
Yeah, you want to know something
You
funny?
don't change light bulbs. You don't clean up after yourself. You don't do anything.
Yeah, that's what Guapo's for.
Right. Wow. You're a bad guy.
Damn.
You should have heard the broom comment like 2 weeks ago.
I said it again earlier.
What was the broom comment?
It was fucked
I
up.
forgot already.
Yeah, we're gonna get canceled for it.
Don't worry
We
about
already
that.
canceled. Are we all fair now?
Nah,
Oh
it's not
man,
real.
you're mean.
Not mean. I only say it because I love my friends.
Are we doing
mean
any
guy.
strat chat tonight, or are we just gonna blow? Right
I think we kind of got into it a little bit with the underground games. Is there anything else you wanna touch upon?
Not really. We were gonna talk about rake and stuff, but we've already talked about rake a lot.
Yeah.
That more of it's better.
More rake better.
I don't think we were gonna say that, but
Well, it just
don't
depends.
play in games that have high rake, maybe. You know.
unless
Good
they're black market app games that have a bunch of whales.
I mean, like you can maybe negotiate
In
some
which
rake
case,
No.
also don't play in
If
those.
you're winning, you don't get to do that.
No, yeah, you also don't play in those unless you can somehow fake your identity to become one of the whales. That way, you're insured to get paid.
That's true.
Mm.
That's next level.
Only playing games that have low rake and lots of whales. That's what we've concluded.
Okay, so
That's
get,
game
get
selection
another
right there.
job.
Good advice. Sound
Get a
advice.
fucking job.
What's a
Super
game that
easy.
has low rake and a lot of whales?
1-2
Bellagio.
element.
No, I didn't mean in poker. I just meant like call it game, different business,
In
like
life?
aspect, like life game.
Guapo, did you say 1-2 no limit?
Yeah.
The rake on that is absurd.
It's so high.
So high.
It's so
Dude,
high.
but there's so many whales.
There's not whales.
At
There's
1-2 no limit
bad.
live.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't call them whales.
I would call them nits.
Very bad players.
I mean, it seems
Whales.
like tech is kind of the place, right? Like you can just
Tortoise.
kind of like
Listen,
make infinite,
I did see
like
a
you spike.
Yeah.
What type of how privileged of a group do you run around in that you just think that like you could just like dabble in tech and just
not
make
that you
Infinite?
can just dabble in tech, but that like that's a game that's not dead.
I mean,
large upside.
Yeah, it's large upside, but it's the same as the game that we're playing. Like 1% of the field makes money.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
you were
but they
talking
make a lot
about
more money.
I thought you were talking about playing in home games with guys from tech companies, not actually owning tech companies. Like,
No,
that's
I meant
not a
owning-
soft game. Come on.
No.
Well, okay then. What's a
Landon's
soft?
out here moving big pieces, man. You know, he's
That's
just
what
setting
it
up the
is.
chessboard.
Well, he's an
a little bit
influencer
over
now.
here, a little bit of.
I'm not Phil Hellmuth, man. Relax.
You're on the board.
I'm not on the board. I want to be on the board. I'll get there.
Fast forward 40 years, you'll be the new.
Yeah.
You'll be the new Phil Hellmuth.
It's just gonna be him and Bezos standing next to one another, arm in arm, thumbs up.
Yeah.
on the moon
I
or wherever
remember when.
Bezos is going to be living by then.
Yeah,
Man, probably be doing pretty
dream
well
big,
at that
kid.
point.
Yeah,
Dream
dream
big.
big.
Yeah,
you know?
you say that as you say, don't play 1-2 blitz on twitch.tv/Landon Tice.
What?
It's incredible
play
how
1-2 at
good.
the South Point.
It's incredible how good you are at marketing your own thing.
So good.
You know where this is going.
So good. He doesn't even know the website.
The day I see,
Software.io.
the
There you
day
go.
I see him put
What can
Matt
you do
Hunt's,
there, Landon?
the day I see him put Matt Hunt's new course out, Keep It Simple, on his Twitter, Instagram, or any of his
does he know
socials.
about that? Does he?
He
You
doesn't
know,
know.
he probably doesn't.
No
We've
way.
just
He
mentioned it
even knows.
every day
Yeah.
this week, Hunt. But you
Yeah.
have a new course out.
Oh look, 9.1K. We're getting there. Moving up in the world.
Get this shit off my screen. Hunt, you have a new course out. Keep it
do.
simple. What's the core behind this one?
It's basically using a lot of. We've already mentioned GTO Wizard AI. It's basically using a lot of the tools around Wizard and the AI functions to look at taking spots where solver strategies would usually be really complex and kind of boiling it down to using single sizings and basically providing a framework for how to think through a spot in a way where if you're only going to use one sizing and you're trying to pick what that sizing is going to be, these are what your protocols can be or should be for how to boil that down and how to figure out your approach. So definitely something that I enjoyed making, and it's probably the course so far that has the most detail on how I actually think about the game when playing.
Practical
So,
application, if
yeah,
you will.
You know,
I'm so disappointed you didn't call it Kiss.
keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that, but like having the word "stupid" in the title of a course didn't sound like.
I don't, you know, I
great
thought
idea.
that too, but I don't know, man.
But imagine the thumb with Hunt
Yeah.
just blowing a kiss.
That's not. That's not happening.
I don't
That
know.
way,
Man,
if
that'd
you
be
want people to
great.
get, if you want people to like watch the course, don't put that on the thumbnail.
If you guys want to see us change the name of Hunt's course to Kiss with him blowing a little smooch your way.
you can change the name, but I'm not. You can generate.
Oh,
you can AI
yeah, we
generate.
have AI now, man.
Yeah,
We'll superimpose the shit out of you.
I'm not doing a photo shoot just for that.
If you guys want to see Hunt blowing a kiss on the new course, go ahead and drop a comment below. Give us a like, a subscribe. You know the drill. That's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. It's going to be our last late show of the week. We're going to be joined by Jeremiah on Friday at noon, as I mentioned before we head off to Big Bear. So be sure to tune in to both of those. Set your timers now or your alarms, or just click the fucking bell, man. Just click the bell and you'll find out.
Click the button.
The hard way. That's going to do it for us. Hunt, as always, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
We'll be back tomorrow. We'll see you guys all then.
Peace, squad.
Peace.